Welcome to the MLB World Series Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guys Mo Nawara in the Midwest, and we've got Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at the World Series here, gentlemen, in 2022. The Astros taking on the Phillies. A couple of very red-hot teams here. The Astros have yet to lose a game in these playoffs. The Phillies been crushing the competition, including sweeping the Cardinals to start. Looking pretty hot. We've got a number of guys interested in the Phillies with some futures, including our friend Steven Andreas, who has had a pretty nice bet on them 51 to win this thing altogether. So some fun stuff to look at here, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us as we come back to you with these videos for this World Series. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into everything we've got here. Game one, as well as a few of these series notes before this thing does kick off.
Yeah, for the series, the Astros are minus 185. For game one, they're minus 170. Similar line for the Phillies, plus 160 for the series, plus 145 for game one. And both managers are still holding off on announcing a starting pitcher. For a minute, we had Framber Valdez listed as game one on DraftKings. That's what I saw. And then they pulled that because apparently the Astros might go with Verlander, which makes sense. He hasn't pitched since October 19th. He's the AL Cy Young winner potentially, so I don't understand why they would save him for game two here, especially against the Phillies lineup that hits lefties much better. And then the Phillies, it's either going to be Aaron Nola or Zach Wheeler, we can assume, but sounding like they're leaning a little more towards Nola, maybe the veteran with more experience. Did post some pretty good peripheral stats on the road, did Nola, with a 10.3 K to walk ratio, got lefties to swing a lot outside the zone, held lefties down. That really matters most when you face Yordan Alvarez, the hottest hitter for the Astros. So to me, the biggest thing about this series in general is the home road splits. That the Phillies are barely above 500 on the road here on the season, 44 and 43. In the playoffs, undefeated at home. Now 4-2 on the road. I mean, that's 2 wins in St. Louis. So really they split the openers with San Diego and Atlanta, then come roaring back. So I would either look at that as an opportunity to bet after they lose game one, if they do, and maybe after they lose both game 1 and 2, and then get some plus odds on them to take this to 6, take it to 7. As it stands right now, you are getting nice plus odds for this series to go 7. You're getting plus 650 for the Phillies to win it in 7, or plus 700 for them to win it in 6. If you want to get late on that bandwagon that Josh is talking about, which was the Phillies with extremely long odds to pull this off from the lowest seed in the NL. I don't think that's a terrible bet, but yeah, I have a hard time picking them in Houston right now. I mean, they're hitting 296 at home, 187 on the road, 557 OPS on the road versus a 975 OPS at home in this postseason. Smallish sample size when it comes to baseball, but Houston's tough to beat at home, man. So I would look at either even money for Astros to win game 1 in the series, which we talked about in each of their last 2 series, or I would look at the Phillies as a potential later betting opportunity, or, on series spread for them to at least make this a longer series.
I like the Phillies a little bit. I just don't know if it's enough to bet. So there's some plus 165s out there, I think, and I think that's good enough to at least consider betting. I did take the Phillies in game 1, though. Interesting spot for them, depending on the pitchers, I guess. I am hoping it's Verlander, and I guess either Wheeler or Nola would be fine, although I hope it's Wheeler. I do have Wheeler projected a little stronger than Nola. I have Framber as actually a little stronger than Verlander. That's probably going to surprise a lot of people, but Verlander just didn't pitch as good as his ERA this year. Wheeler struck out fewer batters slightly than Verlander, but he was basically better in every other facet of pitching. Walked fewer batters, allowed fewer home runs, and allowed weaker contact. I would guess Nola is going to be in the same boat, although I didn't look into his because I did think it was going to be Wheeler when I was initially capping this. I also think early game when the Phillies have their good relievers available is going to be a little better for them. The Astros have a much deeper bullpen. They have a better bullpen. So I'm a little more interested in the Phillies when they have their full complement of bullpen arms available. It's good that they get David Robertson back and Sir Anthony Dominguez. When they have these guys, this is a fine bullpen. I don't think it's bad. And it was probably bad at the beginning of the season. Adding Robertson was pretty big. He's been very good for them. I think something like 2.7 ERA. My concern here in this series with the Phillies is going to be obviously their defense. Huge advantage for the Astros in that realm of baseball. Philly was the second worst by outs above average. I think only the Nationals were worse than them. Astros were second. So we've already seen the Phillies defense cost them some unearned runs several times this postseason. The thing about this matchup that makes it so tough for them in that sense is that the Astros are the second best team avoiding strikeouts. Only Cleveland struck out less often than Houston did. So we should be seeing some balls in play here, and balls in play against Philly is a bad thing. So that's my main concern here. I do think plus 145 is definitely too high for game one, though. As long as we get Nola or Wheeler, which I guess is like 95% chance. Yeah, it's just too high for me. They're going to have just as good of a pitcher on the mound, basically. And I don't think these offenses are that far apart at all. I mean, Philly's offense is not as strong as Houston's by the numbers, but a lot of Bryce Harper missed time in there. I think it's a bit closer than the numbers say. And we know they've smacked lefties around all year. So if they face Framber, I think that's a good thing for them.
So a little bit of a split decision there on who's going to win game one, as I know Nate likes those Stros at home. I would also consider, just briefly saying, the total there. If you like how hot these offenses are, 6.5. I know it's the postseason, but feels a little bit low potentially for game one, where you might be able to see some hitting. As Mo mentioned, a lot of balls in play here. I want to move us on real quick to seeing what you guys think about these series correct scores. I'm currently looking at DraftKings, which has some pretty nice juicy odds here. The shortest odds here are the Stros to win in 6. So 4-2 for them at plus 340. The Stros to win in 7 plus 390. And then the Stros to win in 5 is plus 500. So before you get to the Phillies winning at plus 650, you've got a bunch of options there for the Astros and how many games you think they'll win. Anything here tickle your guys' fancy? Nate, I'll kick it off with you and wonder about that exact score for the for the World Series, if there's any value there for you.
Well, yeah, like I said in the opener, the Phillies to make this the long series is intriguing. Plus 650 to win it in 7, or plus 700 to win it in 6. I mean, in terms of getting your late money on this Cinderella story, if you will. But I kind of like the general market. I mean, just to go 6 games is minus 175. And plus 210 to get to a game 7, regardless of who wins. I think if you put money on both of those, you're banking on the narrative that I kind of laid out, which is Houston takes care of business at home. When we go back to Philly for 3 games, they continue to do what they've done at home. And then that's when the Astros rotation gets a little more vulnerable as well. They're going to have to start like Christian Javier in one of those games potentially. Once the Phillies get another look at Verlander and Framber, I think their offense starts to come alive a little bit more. So I kind of see that as how this will unfold, with the Phillies coming back to make it a close series. I don't think Houston's going to be able to sweep them out the way they did the Yankees at all. And that being said, I do think Houston probably wins in a close series. Just the overall depth of their pitching staff and lineup and the defense advantage is probably too much for the Phillies to overcome. And there is some narrative here for the Astros to get past their tainted championship and win it this year.
Well, I took some Phillies in 6 on DraftKings, plus 700. I think it's good. This is a way to basically bank on the top arms they have, because the way that it should go is Wheeler and Verlander, right, starting 4 of the first 6, I believe. And then If it got to game 7, things would get weird. We'd be looking at basically bullpen games at that point, most likely. Like maybe Ranger Suarez and Lance McCullers or Christian Javier. These guys might start the game. They're not going to probably throw more than about 3 innings. So it's just all hands on deck at that point. So basically, I think if you take Phillies in 6, you're kind of getting a price of like that they're going to win at least, a few of the games with Wheeler and Nola starting. And those are going to be their best chances to win, right? So a lot of pressure on them to win these games, I think, because the back end of the rotations do favor the Astros. Christian Javier and Lance McCullers, I do think are better than the options the Phillies have. Ranger and looks like Noah Syndergaard might throw game 4. So yeah, those are going to be tough ones for the Phils. I know that they can be at home in those games and that helps, but just banking on these aces a little bit and you can get Phillies in 6 plus 700 I think it's okay. The Fangraphs projections like it too. They have that as value. The Zips projection likes that a little bit. It has a plus 640, I think, as a fair price on that one.
Well, let me just ask you then, slight transition to MVP conversation, but some of the stuff you said kind of led me to wonder, Mo, if there's some value for potentially one of those Phillies pitchers then at that point, right? We've got a couple pitchers both on the Stros in sort of the top part of this MVP favorites. You've got Yordan Alvarez actually at favorite at plus 650. Bryce Harper also at plus 650, just because that seems to be the narrative is he's going to continue his streak if the Phillies do win. Then you've got Verlander, right? First pitcher there at plus 950. Kyle Tucker at plus 1,000. Then Framber also at plus 1,100. By the time you get to Aaron Nola, plus 1,600. Zach Wheeler plus 1,700. For both of those guys, who you mentioned, Mo, could be pretty crucial to them winning, their starts essentially, right? So, what do you think of the way that sort of game theory might flow if they do win that? Is that enough of a narrative for either Nola or Wheeler to show that they dominated, went 2-0, let's say, and kept that ERA sub 2, et cetera, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't mind a little bit of Wheeler or Nola plus 1,800, plus 1,700. Probably Wheeler makes a little more sense just because if he does throw game 2, he has a better chance probably to throw in the closeout game if they do finish it in 6. Little bit tougher, obviously, for Philly to win in 5. That being said, starting pitchers have had a tough time with this one. I think I wrote up in my World Series preview, which you can find on thelines.com. 4 starting pitchers have won in the past 20 seasons. So you need some big odds, but you're getting it, I think. On the other side, I think I'm a little bit interested in Jose Altuve. If you like the Astros, plus 1,400-ish is the price there. What's weird about this one is I know he's been ice cold, but he's the favorite to lead the series in hits. He's like most hits market. He's like plus 450. So if that's the case, I just don't see how, I guess he can be this far down the board for MVP.
Yeah. And Bregman right there with Altuve. I mean, there's certainly a path for him to not have as many hits, but to have the bigger hits. And he's been the guy cleaning up behind Alvarez, so he's put in those big spots if they do kind of pitch around him. And his defense can be a difference maker as well. Or you can just go with the plain and simple Bryce Harper if you think the Phillies are closing this out in 6 and he continues his torrid streak. The Astros with only one lefty starter. I don't know how many lefties scare you out of that bullpen. They are pretty righty-heavy staff, so Bryce, could continue his torrid stretch here in the postseason and just come through as the favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to mention Bregman myself, to be honest, at plus 1,200. Not only has he been, crushing the ball in the last 2 series, he crushes Phillies pitching so far as well. It's a pretty nice number when you look at what he's been able to do, batting about 400 there against those Philly pitchers in 5 career games. But I mean, 400 with 2 doubles and a triple. I believe he's got a homer, about 3 RBI. So he's done plenty well against this Phillies pitching in his career as well. well up to this point and in the last, few seasons. So I think there's something to be said for plus 1,200 for Alex Bregman as well. But that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along as we are getting ready to kick off this World Series. Coming back to you guys with a few videos for those. And until we see you next, happy betting.